Once there was a land that lived in fear of 7 goblins. They were called the Rainbow Goblins, and each had his own color, which was also his name. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Yellow, being the craftiest, was their chief. The goblins lived on color. They prowled the valleys and climbed the highest mountains looking for rainbows, and when they found one, they caught it with their lassos, sucked the colors out of it, and filled their bellies with its bright liquid. Only one place in the land had never known goblin fear: the hidden valley called the Valley of the Rainbow, where the great arches of color were born. There the animals still lived in paradise. But the Rainbow Goblins had heard tales of this valley, and their mouths watered whenever they thought of the feast that awaited them there. And so they gathered up their lassos and their pails and set off. With great effort, the goblins made their way over the jagged piles of rock that guarded the entrance. When the climbing became difficult, Yellow roared, "Don't lose heart, comrades. Think of the delicious colors ahead." The sun had almost set by the time they reached their goal, the very meadow where the rainbow sprang to life. Immediately beneath the meadow, they found a cave. "We'll spend the night here," the Yellow Goblin commanded. When the moon rose and saw them warming themselves around the fire they had lit, it shouted out in alarm, "The Rainbow Goblins are in the valley." The trees and the bushes took up the cry, and the flowers and the grasses and the animals in the waters passed it on, and by midnight the evil tidings had spread throughout the valley. The goblins could hardly contain their excitement. "Soon all the colors of the rainbow will be ours," Yellow gloated. "We'll snatch it as it rises," said Green, "when the colors are still fresh and creamy." The Blue Goblin cackled. "Look at the roots dangling from the walls. They're straining to hear our plans. A lot of good it will do them, or their friend, the rainbow." Finally, exhausted by their scheming, the goblins fell asleep. Outside, the moon shone on the mirror-like surface of the water, and its magical light was reflected into the cave. Then all 7 goblins had a wonderful dream. The same wonderful dream about the paradise of Rainbow Land, where all you had to do was lie on your back and open your mouth, and the most succulent colors dripped down your throat. The dream went on and on. The greedy goblins drank and drank, and at dawn, just as their bellies were about to burst, they were awakened by a distant clap of thunder. The goblins sprang to their feet and rushed to the mouth of the cave. "A storm! A storm!" Red shouted. "Look how the wind is driving it toward us," Orange cried. And all the goblins danced and pranced about in glee, for they knew that after the wildest morning thunderstorm comes the most beautiful rainbow. Yellow was so proud of his plan of attack that he went over it again, while each goblin tested his lasso. "Red, don't forget that you must seize the left flank. And I move in on the right," the Violet Goblin burst out excitedly. Before the last roll of thunder had faded from the valley, the goblins took up their pails and their lassos and marched single file out of the cave. The sight that greeted them when they reached the meadow took their breath away. The rising arch of the rainbow, so rich with color and promise, almost blinded them. Trembling with excitement, Yellow finally managed to give the signal to attack. The goblins swung their lassos around and hurled them into the sky. But in that same instant, the rainbow vanished, as if it had been swallowed up by the earth. The goblins were dumbfounded. Nothing like this had ever happened to them before. They stared up at their empty outstretched lassos, which a second later snapped back at them. Indigo wept, Blue cursed, Yellow stumbled, Orange cried out treachery, Violet tumbled to the grass, and Red raged. But the more they thrashed about, the more tangled up they became in their own lassos, until they had snarled themselves into a grunting, groaning mass of goblins on the ground. As they lay there helplessly, a flood of colors poured forth from all the flowers of the meadow. "The flowers!" screamed the blue goblin. "The flowers!" He had suddenly remembered the dangling roots he had made fun of in the cave. Through their roots, the flowers had heard the goblin's plans, and they had devised a counterplan to save the rainbow. The moment the attack was launched, the flowers had drained the colors of the rainbow into their petals. And as soon as the goblins became ensnared in their own lassos, the petals had let loose the deluge. So the goblins drowned in the colors they had come to steal, and no one in the valley wept for them. The rainbow itself was reborn more magnificently than ever. Out of gratitude, it lifted up the flowers that had saved it and transformed them into glittering dragonflies and butterflies and splendidly plumed birds. But since that time, the rainbow has become more cautious. Now, when it arches across the sky, it is careful not to touch the earth anywhere. No matter how you try to sneak up on it, you can never come to the place where it begins or ends. This was The Rainbow Goblins by Ul de Rico. Good night and sleep well.